Okay, now we're going to be creating the player's bullets, and there's going to be two different bullets that the player can fire. So we're going to right click and insert a new object, and we're going to add another sprite, and we're going to call it player bullet 1, and we're going to look at the sprites that we have here, and I think that the player bullet should be these gold bullets right here. So I'm going to select that, and I'm also going to add a behavior to this bullet, which will be the bullet behavior. And we're going to do this one more time. We're going to move these down here, actually. So we're going to do this one more time. And we're going to right click, add a sprite, and we're going to call this sprite player bullet 2. And we're going to see what we have left. And I think I'm going to make it these silver bullets here. So that's good. And I'm going to put this down here. I'm going to shrink it a little, make it more in line with the other ones. And I'm also going to give this one the bullet behavior. So added a behavior and added the bullet behavior. So now that we've done that, we're going to create the enemy plane itself. So we're going to right click and insert a new object, as we've been doing, and we're going to call this sprite the enemy plane. And we're going to insert it, and we're going to use this enemy plane sprite here. Okay, looks good. And we're going to rotate this in the sprite editor. So we're just gonna go back in the sprite editor for the enemy plane and click rotate clockwise, not counterclockwise, clockwise. And we're also gonna make the enemy plane a bit smaller. And we're gonna put it off to the side for now. So what we're going to do for the enemy plane is we're going to give it two behaviors. The first behavior is going to be the bullet behavior, and the second behavior is going to be the sign behavior. And we'll see as we play around with this. The sign behavior allows the plane to move in a predictable pattern down the screen. So if you want, you're able to add more than one sign behavior to your enemy plane to make it move in more unique patterns. Right now, it's going to move in a horizontal pattern. So next thing we're going to do is we are going to be creating an explosion sprite. So we're going to insert a new object, a sprite called explosion, and rather than get the sprite up here, we're going to go down to animation 1 frames. Right now there's 1 frame here, it's blank. We're going to right click in here and we're going to click import frames from strip, and we're going to click on our explosion sprite strip. So it was a 4x4 grid of explosion sprites, so we're going to make this a 4 and make this a 4, and we are going to click replace entire animation, and this is going to remain horizontal. So we're going to click import. So as you can see, it imported a nice explosion like this. So We're going to leave this off to the side. And last thing we're going to do right now is insert a background. So we're going to get a sprite and we're going to name it background. And we're going to use this picture of the water because the fight is going to be taking place over the water. We're going to right click and we are going to send it to the bottom. Yours won't look this pixelated. Earlier when I had started the project, I had accidentally selected to make it for sprites, make it work better with sprites, so that makes everything more pixelated. So this, as long as you don't select that in the beginning when you're starting your new project, it won't look as pixelated as this. So right now, we're going to add in some text objects. We're going to right click in an empty space, insert new object, and it's going to be a text object. And we're going to name it. We are going to name it player health. And the text that it will show will just say health colon space. And we could place that in the top left. And we're going to insert another new object. And it's going to be another text object. And it's going to be called score text. And it's going to have the word score colon space in it. And we're going to put that in the right over here. Remember, if you accidentally do something, you could always do Control-Z to undo it. Some final objects to include here. We're going to insert the keyboard object, which is important, so you can actually play the game. We're going to insert the mouse object. So now we're going to head on to the event sheet, and we're going to not add an event first, but we're going to start adding some global variables which will be needed to make this game work correctly. So you're going to right click in the empty space and you're going to add a global variable, and you're going to call it bomb time. And you're going to set that value to 6. And you're going to add another one. And it's going to be called score. And you could leave that at 0. You're going to add another one called double shot time. And you're going to set that equal to 10. You're going to add another one called player health and set that to 100. Another global variable called 2shot, and it's going to be equal to 0. There's going to be another variable called ship time, or sorry, it's going to say play timer, and that's going to have a value of 3. Okay, so we're going to go back to the layout. We're going to click on our enemy plane, and we're going to add something here called an instance variable. Now, right before this, we were dealing with global variables, and those are variables that that affect the whole layout. But these are variables that can be assigned individually to each and every instance of the plane. So this plane, this enemy plane, and a different enemy plane on screen can have two different values for the same variable, the same instance variable. So right now we're going to go to the instance variables window, and we're going to add a new instance variable. And we are going to call it ptimer, and we're going to set the value to 1. Okay. So now we're going to create a system event. We're going to add an event, and it's going to be called every X seconds. And we're going to make this game a little less predictable. We're going to make it a random amount, within reason, of course. So we're going to type random 1. So that's a number from 0 all the way to 1, all decimals included, plus 0.5, 0.5. So it's going to, every from half a second to 1.5 seconds, anywhere between there. And then we're going to add an action. And for the enemy plane. And in the enemy plane, we're going to select subtract from, and it's going to be a value of 1 from ptimer. And we are going to add another event, another system event, also called every X seconds, and we are going to subtract play timer, or I shouldn't say subtract, I should say every play timer second. So in this case, play timer is equal to 3, so every 3 seconds. So right now we're going to add an action for the enemy spawner, and this action is going to be called set position, and we're going to make the X value a random 640, which means that we're setting the X value, the horizontal value of the enemy plane, anywhere from 0 to 640, which is the all the way to the left or all the way to the right of the screen. And we're going to add another action for enemy spawner, and we're going to select spawn another object, and we're going to click that object, click to choose, and we're going to choose the enemy plane. And lastly, we're going to add an action for the enemy plane called set angle of motion. So adding an action for the enemy plane, and it's in here, set angle of motion, and we're going to set that to 90 degrees. So in computer science, unlike in math, 90 degrees is not facing towards the top of your screen. It's actually facing downward. 90 and 270 are switched in computer science. So in this case, if we want the enemy plane to be moving down towards our player, we have to make it move at 90 degrees. So let's just see what we have with that so far. Let's just see how this looks. We're going to press play. And our plane is definitely making strange movements. Well, in Construct, they think that the front is right here. So when we set the angle of motion to be 90 degrees, it is rotating this whole plane. So even though this is the correct orientation for us when we're building it, we actually should move the plane to look like this again in the editor. So that way, and also on top of that, we should move this sprite out of the way so it doesn't just fly across the screen. So when we press play again, we're not going to see that first plane that flew sideways across the screen, but what we are going to see are the enemy planes flying the correct direction. Although they are flying a little fast. So now here's what we could do right now. We could start play testing a little. We can see what how the game plays. So right now, with our enemy plane highlighted, we should definitely lower the speed of this plane. So we're going to lower it to about 200. I think half is nice. So we're going to try that again. And let's see what this looks like. Yeah, and that looks so much better. That looks like a good enemy. Okay. While I'm looking at it, we should probably also make the power spawner invisible initially as well. So make sure this is not checked. Also, we're going to take time to save. Or maybe we're going to save later. Okay.